realfaith.org.au.
I started a number of not-for-profits. There's one now still operating in America called Inside Out Global, and it just takes, with permission by police or courts that are involved with helping people through their traumas, to do a boot camp in film making.
Welcome to Real Faith, conversations about the impact faith has on our lives and the challenges we go through, helping us today and giving us hope for tomorrow. That's real people, real life and real faith with Eric Scatterbo.
Well, today we have part 2 of our conversation with Gavin Baulch, who had his childhood stolen from him when he was abused for several years, starting when he was only 7 years old. And he literally went mute as a response to the trauma. However, as we heard last time, the Lord eventually helped Gavin find his voice and begin down a road to recovery. Today we'll hear how God restored Gavin's childhood as an adult through a renewed awareness of creativity and imagination. Also, we'll hear how Gavin helps others find their voice through film and other visual means. That's all coming up today as Gavin shares more of his story with us. And parents, before we get started, I just want to remind you that due to the adult themes that will be discussed, today's program is not appropriate for young listeners. Gavin Baulch, welcome back to the program.
Great to be back, Eric.
Glad to have you with us. And so, as we heard last time, sadly, we heard how at 7 years old, there were 2 pedophiles who were boarders on your parents' property and had abused you for a period of 5 years.
Yes.
But we did hear that you went to a Billy Graham crusade and learned that Jesus is your friend, something that you know still to this day, how many years later, and also that...
Yeah, there's a cleansing and removal of shame.
And that's exactly what a young 12-year-old Gavin needed to hear about cleansing, particularly after what you had been through. And you went forward and became a Christian at that Billy Graham crusade at 12 years old. And also we heard how in your life, because of everything you've gone through, you're very compassionate to others who've gone through trauma as well. So, as we just heard in the introduction, childhood was stolen, which is, of course, terrible, but God has a way of working through the terrible experiences, the pain, the agony that we've gone through. And he restored your childhood.
Yes.
How did he do that?
Well, I'll say 2 things first. One, as a child, I thought as a child, and then I've grown up, and I look back on those years with understanding that comes through life's experience, the university of life, which is just living day to day with its ups and downs, and the realization that it is a true statement that this Jesus is a redeemer of time. He uses time and he uses experience, and he says, and this is true, and I speak to it as a truth, that all that happened, though it was trauma, it now becomes something for good. It's an interesting dichotomy, an interesting unpackaging, but it's true because I learned things and became aware of that in others' lives, and because Jesus revealed what compassion was and worked through this trauma, I'm equipped in some way to live with myself, to have enormous gratitude for, over time, what's been restored and renewed. And this thought, my childhood was returned, came again through a traumatic illness, or which was, I had allergic reactions, anaphylactic reactions to unknown substances for a number of years back in the 1990s. And 1995, 96, I was again in the Royal Melbourne Hospital with various drugs to try and enable the swelling around the throat to subside. But I had breathed out, right? And I can't breathe in, I know this. And in a moments of parts of a second, it's like it was such a strong thought. Maybe one of those voices in your head, and it said, do you trust me? And it's like, we're talking split second here, and my response was, oh, well, gosh, if that's you, Jesus, God, yes, I think I have. Again, time's going very quickly here. And then there seemed to be a response that said something like this, will you trust me for the next breath? And again, there's a fraction of a second between a response, and my response was, yes, I think I can. And then I breathed in. And so I'd overcome that moment where I was aware that if breath is life, I'd run out of it. Whatever the doctors were planning to do, I don't know what they were planning to do. I know where I was. And I responded and I breathed back in, right? And then another thought was Psalm 71. And it's like, oh, yeah, right, I'm not really good at remembering what's in these different books in the Bible, though I'd read it as a child, and read it over the years. When you're dyslexic, you don't necessarily have a good memory. I didn't. Anyway, when I found a Gideon's Bible next to the table when I'd settled down in the hospital, I read the psalm, and it was my life, and it's still unpackaging verse by verse. It was such a comforting piece of work. And because I was aware that I needed breath, I needed that capacity to breathe in.
Literally.
When asked to literally breathe in, when I came home from hospital, everything was kind of newish. Like I was aware of nature around me. It was brighter.
Oh, wow.
It was people.
So you had this epiphany.
Well, there's a word I haven't even tried to unpack. You're one of few that have said that word in the years.
Well, does it fit?
Yeah, it does fit. There's something. So because I'm also a visual person, that was heightened, that visual side. So I had been experimenting with 8mm film prior to that, and I'd experimented with some commercials and things, and I always had this story arc concept, and realised that if I had a story to tell, so the other person in, let's say, through life or through a trauma or through experience of some sort, if they were able to name the pain and look at what had brought them to this point, and then looked at, okay, let me work through this, and they tell their stories, if another young adult sees that VHS or video as it became, and now, of course, it's on a more compact form, then that story can be told like you read the stories in the Bible, and there's so much reality and truth to them that they will impact your life. So another person telling their story based on reality will impact someone else.
Oh, yeah. But now, I'm just trying to think this through. So you have this epiphany, suddenly the sky is more beautiful, the colors are more brighter, and that kind of begins your second childhood?
Well, yes, because, all right, up to age 7, life was great. I was an only child, remember. I didn't like that much. And then, of course, I had no friends at all. So not only did I have no siblings, right, that a communication element wasn't there. And then I lost my voice, so communication was not evident at all. Now I was aware that telling a story, giving a person without a voice, which was the vehicle of media or radio or TV.
Because going back to your story, you literally lost your voice.
Yes.
And then you found your voice literally, but also figuratively, as a survivor of sexual abuse.
All right, yes.
That's
a phrase voice. I've not actually used much before. Go on, yes.
You found your voice to speak up, to kind of take charge, whereas before you were more or less a victim.
Yes.
So you found your voice. Now, through media, you're helping others at this point find their voice.
Yes. As clearly as that. And so I had the means and technology over those years, 80s and 90s in particular.
Why did you have the means? What was your background?
I was always artistic. I was doing oil painting. As soon as something was restored in me, even at my faith in Jesus, that this relationship with Jesus, I started to paint. And some of my paintings at age 12 are people have commented and said, no, a 12-year-old can't do this. Well, I did. And it seemed to be an outlet. I wasn't aware that what I think on all of us is God's thumbprint of creativity. I mean, a woman who in a kitchen with food and puts it together, it's a meal, and a guy who works on a car and puts the nuts and bolts together and it goes, and someone who does a painting or a sculpting it's creativity, all right? And it's drawing that out of others, and also what I had, I want to give it away to others as a tool, basically.
So how did you do that?
Started a number of not-for-profits. There's one now still operating in America called Inside Out Global, and it just takes, with permission by police or courts or bodies that are involved with helping people through their traumas, to do a boot camp in film making. So we bring in people who are experts in sound and camera and script writing, and we embody these young adults, usually somewhere between maybe 10 of them up to maybe 25 of them. We do a boot camp. We teach them. It takes a couple of days for them to trust us, but they can see that we bring in professionals in the industry. And so after 5-6 days, sometimes a bit longer, they're able to write their own story about pain. And some of them, if you work in a crew of, say, 6 kids, then we look through a strengths test. We try to find out a minimum of 4 strengths of character, personality that they have, whereas a lot of them have been told, you're no good, your school works, you're failing, you're a failure, all of these kind of put-down things. They're never built up, encouraged that they're of some worth.
Yeah, so by having them make their story
Yes.
in a visual form,
Yes.
in a video, they're able to heal from their trauma?
Yeah. Yes, because they're now talking about. See, often these things are repressed. As a child or a young adult, you don't have the vocabulary. You've gone through something, and how do you explain it to somebody else who may not even believe you? And basically, they put an evidence piece of themselves, and once they start naming and bringing out of themselves this pain, then now they can see a way through. And that kind of then social interaction in a small group that, you're trusting them to put your part of the story, because those 6 kids will mix up elements of each other's stories, so it's this overarching tool to encourage others to look at certain realities and pain.
Our guest today is once again Gavin Baulch, who's the founder of Inside Out Global, an organization which empowers students to discover their gifts and heal from trauma through filmmaking. Gavin has been involved with media and the arts for many years, conducting film workshops and teaching media classes. To find out more about Inside Out Global, you can go to their website. It's insideoutglobal.org. Once again, that's insideoutglobal.org. Next, we'll hear more of Gavin's story when we return right here on Real Faith.
The Word for Today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
You're listening to Real Faith, conversations with real people about how God works in their lives. If you want to know more about integrating faith into your life, our website is realfaith.org.au. Just go to the website and you'll find helpful articles about the impact faith can have on your life. Once again, that's realfaith.org.au.
Welcome back. I'm Eric Scadabo, and today, once again, my guest is Gavin Baulch, who has conducted many film workshops and has taught media classes at the Bible College of Victoria. Before the break, we heard how he began to teach students to make videos to tell their stories and to help them heal from various types of trauma. Now here's more of my conversation with Gavin Baulch. Now, did you have counselors look through this program to see whether this is good for them psychologically?
Yes. We often had access to church facilities because we needed sleeping accommodation because they slept over. Yes, we separated the boys and the girls and slept over, and so we ate 3 meals a day and worked long hours. So some of these kids would be editing, in a 24-hour day, filming and editing. They may have spent 18 hours in a day to finish this piece because they're challenged. They want to finish it. I mean, who doesn't want to finish a film with their name in the credits? Just ponder that for a moment.
Yes, true.
And it's a piece of evidence. I've done this.
Yeah.
It may have been the first thing they'd ever completed in their lives, regardless of how young or old they were. It happened a couple of times a year, maybe 3 times a year. People would give their time as professionals, take their leave, their annual leave, just to be part of this. And this was done in America, New Zealand, Australia, Albania, in Africa, some of the nation states there.
So this technique of teaching people how to make their story in a visual format, in a video, this had success to help people to heal from their trauma all over the world.
Yes. To what degree, we'll never know. For instance, we have each group put out a DVD which had 3, 4, depending how many film crews, stories on it, and they covered everything from the impact of divorce on them to sexual abuse to just life situations that have traumatized. May not have traumatized another person, but it traumatized these kids. Yeah. Once you face it, then you're moving forward. And a lot of clinical psychologists, I guess, will say to people, okay, let's try at some point to face this, to bring it out in the open, and we'll be able to talk about it. Otherwise, there's nothing much I can do.
So to answer the question, how did you regain your childhood? The answer is all the above.
Yes, all the above from all that preceded it.
Yeah.
Because in God's economy, he says, I'm the God of second chances, and he's able to redeem and use for good that which wasn't at the beginning.
So with all this creativity and imagination and storytelling, you're like a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah, I am. I
having a second childhood.
Yeah.
And helping others do it.
I'm 76 and I play trains, but that's an interesting story. Why
so the second childhood continues is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. And, playing trains in the garden where children with autism come along and their world changes. Some of these kids begin to talk for the first time. But that's
another whole topic. That you also have a heart for autistic children.
Yes.
And helping them.
Yeah, I think we're all on the spectrum, somewhere. Think about that one for a moment.
That's another whole topic, as you mentioned. But once again, you're using the tool of creativity of a train going through a countryside, which you have in your backyard.
Yes.
And using that as a tool to get them, they're quite interested in... Get them on track. Thank you for that. Very well said. And get them interested.
Yes.
And sometimes you've said that that's resulted in them speaking and talking and kind of getting out of their shell.
Totally.
So yet again, another tool that your creativity has developed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started to kind of get known in the film circles that you're the guy that makes these short movies or helps people make these short videos. Because what we're going to hear is that a number of people start contacting you, extraordinarily start contacting you.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, how in the world did C.S. Lewis's stepson, out of the blue, contact you? How did he even know about you? But was it because your name kind of went through these circles of making these films?
Well, that's the hardest question to answer in where did it all start and the why. C.S. Lewis's stepson, he was trying to make contact with me. I didn't know that. And I was sitting in a conference about missions, and there was a young lady with me who turned out to be a Baulch, a cousin somewhere.
At this point, are you a minister?
No, I'm just me doing film stuff and interested in mission. And this young lass was there, and we're talking, and I find out that she has the same name as me, and she's a cousin somewhere on the tree.
Never met her before?
Never met her before, no. And her phone rings, right? And she's looking at me, and she says, yes, the person sitting next to me. So she says, Gavin, this is for you. It's someone, Gresham. Anyway, they're looking for you. So it's a call from Ireland, and it's a Douglas Gresham, who turns out to be the stepson of C.S. Lewis. And he says, I hear you're interested in doing a C.S. Lewis conference in Melbourne. He said, I know there's one happening in Sydney, but it's not happening in any other state. And I was teaching at the Bible College of Victoria at the time.
What were you teaching? Film?
Yes, film. How to use the story arc from the Bible and to write stories of truth and faith elements. And so saw the vice principal and said, can I run the C.S. Lewis here out of BCV? I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll fund it because you don't have the money. And I raised funds, and it happened.
Wow.
Okay.
So you got to know the stepson.
Yes.
Of C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. We communicated. We were at a wedding together in Tassie. He was associated with Dr. Ted Baer of MovieGuide.org in America, which I was on their board.
Which we need to talk about as well.
Yeah. So it was just, by the grace of God, I would bump into people, all right?
Yeah,
who became significant others.
Yeah, you have all these stories of all these people. Let's move on to the person who you just mentioned, who you developed a relationship with, Ted Baer.
Yes.
Who is Ted Baer?
Dr. Ted Baer, he runs MovieGuide.org, which for any family, person with family and children, every film that's produced in Hollywood and as far afield as they can, they run a worldview breakdown on its content and
so this is a good resource for Christians to
young families.
Yeah, to learn about movies, whether you should go to them and what their worldview is.
What do you do? Whatever your worldview is, and you take your family, your children to films, and there are some moments when you really do literally put your hands over their ears or their eyes because you're caught out. It happens so quickly.
Yeah. And so that website, once again?
It's MovieGuide.org. So they're reviewing all films made, and so it's a tool to help the parent understand what the kid's seen.
And so how did you develop this friendship with Ted?
Well, I was invited to the Billy Graham Evangelist Conference in Amsterdam in the year 2000. And I wasn't ordained. I didn't call myself an evangelist. I kept getting...
Why were you invited?
Well, I made some little short pieces of film.
Again, people heard about these little...
30 seconds long, like ads they were.
Oh, okay.
And they saw a piece, so I'm told, that was... a bit of discussion because the Billy Graham people made movies, right, in the 50s. Yeah. Well, in fact, they set the stage for media outreach through storytelling and film. And I was making commercials for different moments in like starting a coffee shop where discussion about life would take place.
So for ministries?
Yes.
Pro-life?
Yep.
Spots as well?
All sorts of things. And someone saw it. I got these invitations. And so I went to Amsterdam. My wife said to me after 3 invitations, do you think someone's trying to say something? Do you think God's in this? And I said, honey, we haven't got the airfare. And I don't know why I'm being asked. She said, well, I think you better just go and pack your bag. You haven't even done that, You're normally ahead of things, but you're way behind the 8 ball on this one. So I packed my bag, and then a couple of days the airfare came in, and off I went, and what was then known as God Squad, or Truth and Liberation Concern, gave me a $20 note, which was pinned inside my jacket, and I went with a round-the-world ticket because that was cheapest, and I was going to knock on doors in Amsterdam churches to see if I could sleep under the pews, because I couldn't afford the accommodation at this conference, the Evangelist Conference, 10,000 people from all over the world. And I didn't know where to stay, and I got off the plane, and I had deep vein thrombosis, rushed to hospital.
From the plane ride.
Yeah, from the plane ride. And then for the rest of the session, I was wheeled around in a wheelchair by doctors and nurses from the Billy Graham Association who they said, we are supplying doctors to help anyone who's ill. We're not trusting you to any other hospital or country's medical team. We'll look after you. And I was trying to explain, look, where do I stay? I can't afford a hospital. Well, they put me in a hotel room next to the conference centre.
Oh, wow.
And I kept trying to say, look, I really don't have anything. But they were distracted with looking after me.
So you went from thinking you were going to sleep underneath a pew in a church to being in the accommodation right next to.
Yes.
Okay. So the Lord's looking after you there.
And wheelchaired around every day.
Oh, wow. And so, that's where you met Ted Bear?
Yes. Ted was having a coffee and there was no one else having a coffee, but I was needing the break, literally, and I thought I'd have a coffee, and I went over and said, oh, hi, how are you? We started talking, and all he said was, I don't know why I'm saying this, I hardly know you, but I want you on my board. And
really? Just after a little chat?
Yes, check it with him, he'll let you know. And it's like, really? Okay, who are you? What do you do?
Now, he's well connected in Hollywood.
Yes, he is. Extremely connected, well connected.
Well, that was part 2 of my conversation with Gavin Baulch, who, as we just heard, used to be on the board of a ministry in Hollywood called the Christian Film and Television Commission. They're most known for their movie reviews, which you can find at their website, which is movieguide.org, a great resource for parents to use when selecting movies to watch as a family. Once again, that's movieguide.org. Well, until next time, when we'll hear more of Gavin's story and more of the amazing places the Lord has taken him, I'm Eric Scadabo. So long, and God bless.
You've been listening to Real Faith, and if you have any questions or comments, you can send us a message through our website, realfaith.org.au. That's realfaith.org.au.
Real Faith is a production of Vision Christian Media.
This program is a production of Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, see vision.org.au.